Welcome back for a slightly confusing episode of Bad Therapists. Now, today's episode comes from the great state of Maryland, where we have a licensed clinical social worker who has been practicing for roughly a decade. And this is somebody who is established in the community enough that they own their own counseling center and are a board-approved supervisor, meaning that they're responsible for training the next generation of mental health workers as well. Now, all seems to be going well when suddenly the board receives a complaint from the local police department, specifically Child Protective Services. And to their credit, the board immediately begins their investigation, in particular looking at multiple evaluations the social worker has conducted with one of the juvenile clients. And at first the report reads as you would expect any therapy session to look. Therapist sitting on a chair and the client on a couch across from them. Except he would then get up and sit down on the couch next to the juvenile client. In fact, reportedly on at least 3 occasions, and including physical touch, putting a hand on the client's thigh. And as if that weren't enough, the touching purportedly moved to areas like the butt and the chest, while also saying things like, "If I wasn't with my wife and you were older, I would be with you." The client also reported that when they would leave the office, that the therapist would smack them on the butt on the way out. Now, very quickly, according to the report, the board determined there was sufficient evidence of risk that they suspended the therapist's license pending a formal hearing. That the therapist was a potential serious risk to public safety. Now, here's the confusing part, because just after the hearing, this person's license was reinstated by the board without any indication of why or statement that the findings were not valid. But as I said, it's a confusing story because it doesn't end there. Instead, less than a year later, the therapist suddenly surrenders their license. And the next thing we see from the board is a statement about this surrender, listing not 1 or 2 additional cases, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 additional formal cases now open against this same therapist. But possibly because of the voluntary surrender, we don't get any information about what is in those cases, only that he decided that he would rather surrender his license than deal with what was about to come. So that's all I got for this really strange episode of Bad Therapists, and at least we know that he no longer has a license to practice and harm others in the capacity of a mental health professional. Thanks for joining me.